with me as always. And look, everybody, look at how fancy we've become. Look, we got a sign behind us now, which is a TV, of course. We got new branding. I'm going with the the 80s neon look, which I'm really into. I'm a child of the 80s, as we all know. And as we all, as we get through here, it's been a really interesting month. One, which I could do a whole webinar on, is the ending of Stranger Things, which I will not get into. We will not spend too much time thinking about that or talking about that, because that is not why we are here today. But ultimately, let's jump into what the agenda is. So today, of course, yes, it is 2026, but we are going to be talking about the December 2025 core update and what I am seeing and hearing and seeing in our data. We're going to be talking about Google Gemini and how they are gaining market share, and how, everyone who's been coming to the show for a while, I told you, never sleep on Google. Never sleep on Google. It's going to happen. And then ultimately, we're going to start talking about MCP servers. I get a lot of questions about this. We recently launched our alpha MCP server, which will be available very soon to everyone. We're working with a few customers right now, and which is really exciting. But I still get a lot of questions of like, what is it, and what are they all like? What are they for, and what are they all about? So we're going to talk about that as well, and then ultimately, we are going to round it all off talking about Google's new Universal Commerce Protocol, which is the future of e-commerce, everybody. I'm going to talk about what it is, how it works, and what it means for the future of Agentic Commerce. So let's get into it, because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, everybody, the December 2025 core update. We were all thinking, maybe Google won't release an update this year around the holidays. And just like the worst Christmas present or holiday present we all get, Google did what they do every year. On December 11th, 2025, Google rolled out the December 2025 core update, which lasted 18 days. And this one had a lot of teeth. Even though the sensor chart from SEMrush, our partners, looks very calm. You can see right when this went out, there was a huge spike. And what was impacted, and this is kind of the consensus from across the industry, is that YMYL sites, or your money, your life. And just for anyone here who doesn't know what that means, and everyone that is new, what that means is that any content or site that can impact your physical or financial well-being is scrutinized much more highly by Google than other terms. So we saw a lot of that in finance and health-related sites. We will review those, which interestingly coincided with the most requested, industries to review this month. So that worked out for me. So that was good. That worked out for me. Also, US-based publishers are surging back after being smacked down between February and June of last year. And the big news, I think one of the bigger stories, and this is something that a lot of people have been talking about, is that non-US publishers got hit really hard and are really starting to disappear from US-based SERPs. But we'll get into some data about that. And then, as expected, everyone, what have I been talking about throughout all these months is that I was waiting for AI overviews to surge up and kind of break that 4 or 5. It was probably about 5 months where they didn't move that much. Where they were kind of stuck at 25%, showing up about 25% of the time in our data. They surged up, going from 25% in November to 40% in December. I knew this was going to happen. I predicted it. So high five, Pat. But ultimately that did happen. But let's get into some data so we can show you. So let's look across the blogosphere, or whatever they call it these days. I don't know what the kids call it these days, the internet. But everyone knows I follow Glenn Gabe. Glenn is a very smart guy. He did an amazing breakdown of this update. And I'm so silly, I forgot to put the link to his article, but go to, just Google, Google the update name and his name. He did an amazing breakdown, very in-depth, as he does for all these major core updates. But this is about the publishers, right? And what you're seeing here is that a lot of, what you're seeing in the first one is a site, that got hit in September of 2022. And of course, what happened there? That was the first helpful content update, where a lot of publishers and a lot of sites started to see declines for pretty much, the next few years. And in this update, interestingly enough, something people have been waiting for is some sort of recovery, right? And here it is. Look at this, look at this, right? News, like again, a lot of these, like this is CNN's, you can see that they were having a hard, they got hit back in 2022 and they started to surge back here, which is really interesting. Looking into the middle, a gentleman by the name of Will Flanagan, who works for the Wall Street Journal, latest core algorithm, really, this shows a good view of what happened to non-US based sites, and especially India-based sites, where they saw a steep decline, through this update. So a lot of those, I would say, offshore publishers, let's call it that, not doing as well in the US-based SERPs anymore. And then again, back to Glenn, just another publisher volatility within the UK. You can also see here that UK publishers also did not fare well, through this as well, or at least many of them didn't. But let's look into Conductor's data, right? So started in publishing. Publishing was actually requested many times over the last couple of months. We actually got a few of them last month, so I probably would have covered this anyway, which is interesting. But ultimately, like looking at US based, let's look at US based first, right? Wall Street Journal fared well through the update. They saw a 3% increase in page one visibility. But the interesting thing that I'm seeing in our data is that a lot of these publishers got really walloped between February and June. Wall Street Journal did not fare well through the June update. So maybe this is the start of a recovery from them. I don't like using the word recovery because I don't really think that's a thing. I think that's just more, it's like, yes, it does happen, but I don't want to brand it that way. But for the most part, again, still down, from June, but you're starting to see some signs of life here. The Hindu.com, a huge publication out of India, been on a spiral throughout most of the year. So this update only continued, kind of the hurt for them, back in March and then through June and then through December. All the updates, that have happened, they have not done well through. So they got knocked down another 16% in page one visibility, through this update, and they're down almost 50% since last February. So again, you're starting to see a little bit of interesting actions happening in publishing, which again is, it's an interesting finding, from there. But then looking at, so we looked at the Wall Street Journal, huge publisher. We looked at the Hindu, big offshore publisher out of India. Let's look at, let's look at TechCrunch, right? A more specialized publisher, right? So here, basically seeing, an inverse pattern, to what the Hindu is seeing, but seeing, a similar pattern to what other US-based publishers are seeing, like the Wall Street Journal, which is they have been kind of on a downward, kind of slope from February, up until, right up until November. But December, they are up 15% in page one visibility, which is, pretty much the trend that I saw, again, in US-based publishers, right? So just keep that in mind. This is US-based publishers. Interesting. Just a note, anyone not looking in the Slack, and Liz, thank you so much for sharing the article. So right here, Wall Street Journal is blocking AI in their robots. Oh, interesting. So they're not even letting AI in. So that's interesting. So again, publishers, that's going to be a whole new war for them. If you think the war with Google was bad, wait, this whole AI thing is, it's terrible for publishers, but ultimately we have to see where it lands. So that's what's happening in publishing. Offshore publishers didn't do that great. US-based publishers starting to see, you're starting to see that bucket form where they've been down really from February to June is what I saw. And then a lot of them has started to peak up again, through this update. AI overviews. Let's take a look here. So, looking at, Pat, you messed up. Don't pay attention to that first graph. That's for the next one. But if you look at the next two, that does right. So the middle one, the Hindu.com, right? So you can see their AI overviews have been going down since the June update. But then look at TechCrunch at the bottom, and Wall Street Journals look the same. This is a fat finger flub on my part. I'm human, everybody. Come on. But ultimately TechCrunch, look at the steep increase in AI overviews, right? That's what we're seeing. And that's kind of what I predicted and what we've been waiting for, is that, AI overviews would shoot from 25% all, and start to head back up into that 40 to 50% range, which I think they'll continue to go. So here is where, NerdWallet should live. So let's look at finance, right? So again, another YMYL area. NerdWallet's woes continued, through the update, another 9% decrease. And again, they had looked like they had started to plateau a little bit. But between August, September, October, they were doing okay, still maybe a little bit down, but they definitely saw another negative hit here with another 9% decrease. And then let's look at investing.com. So kind of looking around the map. So investing.com, kind of a publisher, but has a lot of content on it. 13% boost in page one visibility here during this update. They are now up 32% since the June core update. So again, and this is a very high authority site. It's very well taken care of. Not that NerdWallet isn't. NerdWallet is part of that group. And for anyone that has joined the show in the past, these content hubs or content aggregators, and where a lot of stuff is based on affiliate, like the end goal is, hey, we're like, here's the difference between this credit card and that credit card. It doesn't seem like Google or AI is really favoring those sites anymore. So again, I think it's still going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for them, but that team, they have a good team over there and they're going to make it happen. But investing.com doing a really, really, really great job. Investopedia, continued its slide with a chunky 16% decrease. Again, I would consider this another one of those like kind of content hubs, right? And again, like they're now down 44% year over year, through the December, and the December update was just wreaking havoc on these sites, 16% down. So that's something to think. So December was like not a good month. It was not a good month for these folks, right? And then here is where the correct place for the NerdWallet AI overviews should live. But as you can see here, AI overviews starting to create, you see that upward trend for pretty much all three of them. It's less pronounced for Investopedia.com. Again, Investopedia didn't do as well, but they did still see a slight increase in AI overviews. Again, still an authoritative site, but just something to keep in mind there. But you can also see that on NerdWallet and investing. Good news for NerdWallet is that AI overviews is favoring them. So that's hopefully, that's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for them. But also investing.com, again, highly authoritative site, does a really good job. They saw a really good kick up. So let's get into health related sites. Again, this was another site that was requested last month. So that worked out for me again. Finance is kind of always requested. And again, for next month, if you want me to review your industry, just throw it into the chat right now. Again, it's always audience requested, so if you want me to review a particular industry, chuck it in the chat, and then we will chuck in the chat, and then we will, and whatever mentioned the most, and I haven't reviewed in the last few months, I will do live on the show next time. So thank you so much. Next time. So let's get back to the slides. WebMD, something has been one of the most fascinating things. I actually covered this for many, many, many months in a row. And ultimately, it was the beginning of the decline of this site, right? So even if you go back before December 2024, this site has just been going down and down and down and down. And this year, last year rather, not a good year for them. Really not a good year for them. And you can see that every major update, they got smacked down, but they've just been on this steady downward spiral. December was probably the chunkiest loss that they saw, with a 21% decrease in page one visibility. They are now down almost 50% year over year, which is wild. How wild is this? WebMD, it's like one of the most authoritative sites on the internet, is down almost 50% in visibility. Crazy. And I'm sure the site's still doing fine and yada, yada, yada. But, when you look at a site like this, when they were ranking for over 5 million, actually, I think it was over 6 million keywords at some point, and now they are down to below 2 million. That is a huge change. That is a huge change for a site like this. Healthline, very, very similar story. Another big content hub type site. 17%, decline. Similar fate to WebMD. And during December, they are now down 41% since the June update. Healthline was actually doing okay up until June. And then the June update really, smacked them across the face. And then ultimately December kind of backhand them back the other way. And they just continue to fall. Really crazy to see sites of this power and this, of this authority, lose this much visibility in such a short period of time. It's pretty wild. Now, looking at Mayo Clinic. Okay, now this is not mayoclinic.org. This is mayoclinic.com. Why did I pick the .com? Because I wanted to show the difference between the actual institution and content hubs, right? Because mayoclinic.org does fine. That's one of the biggest sites, medical sites on the internet, right? But look at the increase to the actual .com, which is the actual facility, right? And this is what we're seeing. And I've been talking about this for, my God, probably like 3 years now, is that what we're seeing here is really since the helpful content update back in 2022, right? What we're seeing is search engines and AI are favoring, when it comes to medical, the actual institution versus these content hubs. That's why you're seeing WebMDs and Healthlines of the world go in the wrong direction, right? But that's also why you're seeing actual hospital systems like Mayo Clinic, like Johns Hopkins, UPMC. You're seeing all of these sites do very well because they are the actual institution that has the expertise and that has the doctors in it. And that's really been interesting to watch. And that has played out over the last 3 years. This is not something this is not a theory anymore. Like, this is clear as day is what is happening. I could have put any hospital system here. I could put any clinic here, and you will see that. Yes, these sites are not as large as those other sites, and I recognize that. But ultimately, that is something to consider, right? Depending on who you work for or, what types of sites you work on. In medical and finance, that is something that is so clear to me, that these content hubs are losing visibility in favor of the actual financial institution or of the actual hospital system, doctors, like office, et cetera, et cetera. That is definitely something that has been made very, very clear to me. And when you look at the AI overview preference as well, it tells this story. WebMD and Healthline declines. They have been doing fine. And then during this update, they both saw major declines in AI overview visibility. But then when you look at mayoclinic.com, look at that. Look at the sharp increase in AI overviews. Again, understood that this is not, these sites are not the same size, but it's about the trend, right? It's about the story that, that it's telling. And clear as day, these big content hubs are no longer going to be the masters of these arenas. And, like the actual financial institutions, the actual hospital systems, they're going to see, they're starting to see, they're seeing more increased visibility just because they are more they actually have the real people in those organizations that are authoritative. Now, I'm going to show you something that I'm not allowed to show, but I'm going to do it anyway. And, Wei, our chief product officer, if you're watching, I apologize, or any of our engineers who probably say, don't show that, blah, blah. This is our data platform, SERP Stats. So one thing that I like, so I show you guys a lot of trended data, right? I like showing individual sites and how they go up and down, because I think that's the best way to show you that. But just to show you how much AI overviews have spiked during this update, look at this, right? In October heading into November, we were at that 20 to 25% range, right? And what you're looking at here, this is our data. This is our data and the percentage that AI overviews show up in all across our index, right? And when you look at like in November, it started to spike at the beginning, in middle November, because that's probably when they started to turn the dial up and turn the dial down for the update. And then they launched the update on the 11th, and then look at the spike. Look at the huge spikes once they launched it, because Google tests these things. They start rolling these updates out well before they announce them. I don't believe that they just don't know, and they just push a button one day and it goes live. They clearly roll this out and then tell the public, and then ultimately. But look at all the spikes, right? Look at all of that, right? And that's why you're seeing for around November 15th, we were in that 20 to 30% range, around 25%, and then from December 15th. Onward, it went from 30 to 40%, right? And that's where we're going to live here, right? And AI overviews, especially for navigational, informational, educational terms, those are just going to keep going up and to the right. So that's what we're seeing in the data. That's what the December 2025 update looked like, everybody. Let's keep moving because we got time, but very, very interesting. And AI overviews, they are continuing to grow. And speaking of growing, let's start talking about Gemini for a few minutes. So this is from our friends at SimilarWeb. We're all friends here. Good data is good data. And look at this market share across, right? Now, over the last few months, what have I been talking about? I've been talking about OpenAI leaving the window open just enough for Google to creep in and start to really rip away, market share from a search perspective, right? And you're seeing it happen in real time. Gemini's rapid ascent here is insane. Over the course in 1 year, they jumped from 5.7% market share to 21.5%. 5.7 to 21.5. And then ChatGPT declined from 86.7%, so like Google numbers in traditional search, down to just under 65%. And I'm going to tell you, everybody, this chart is going to continue to be more and more red as time goes on, because Google is making moves. I'm sure everyone saw the big move that they made the other day, which I'll get to. But ultimately, more and more people are using Gemini. Google is going to win this race, right? You just can't beat them. And again, like others, like Grok and Perplexity and Claude, Copilot, et cetera. Again, like a lot of those are used for different things. Like Perplexity is really the only one of these that is made as a search engine, and even compared to Gemini. But just everyone has to remember, Google is a search company, right? Their entire life is underpinnings are in search, and they're going to win this race, right? And even on the AI front, Gemini is the best model. I use it every single day. I'm a Gemini user. I have nothing against ChatGPT or Claude or any of these others. I simply just don't use them. Like ChatGPT I use, with our MCP, but which I'll get to in a second. But ultimately, for like day-to-day stuff, if I'm not trying to query my Conductor account, I'm using Gemini. It's the best model. And not sure like what y'all use. Would love to hear what everyone uses in the chat. If you want to throw it in, would love to kind of get an idea of what everyone's using these days. But I'm telling you, everyone, don't sleep on the Google. Don't sleep on them. They're gonna continue to win. Right? They're the Wiz from the 90s. Remember the Wiz? You can't beat them. Just me? I'm the only okay? Yeah. All right. Sam knows. All right. There we go. All right. The team knows. But anyway, but from there, let's get into the next thing, more of an educational piece, because I get this question a lot, right? Basically, a lot of people are like, so we launched our alpha MCP server in partnership with OpenAI and ChatGPT, which is really exciting. And, we're just getting customers into it now. We're in the alpha stage. And, ultimately, I still get the question is like, what is this thing? What is an MCP server? What does it do? And I just don't get it. So let's ask ourselves a couple of questions. LLMs make it easy to ask natural questions, right? Wouldn't it be great if you could ask ChatGPT about your AI search visibility? Let's say you just went to, it's like, hey, how did I do last month versus this month, right? That is what an MCP can help you do. And then just to hammer it home, what if I wanted to build an agent that sends optimization suggestions to my content team every time an article is no longer being cited in Gemini, right? So setting up a task so that would be very manual for you, but then you could just have an agent do it and use the MCP to do that. That is what MCPs can do. So to answer the question, what is an MCP server? MCP, you can think of it, and all credit to Joe Taylor, who runs enablement here at Conductor. I think he has explained this in the best way possible, is that you can think of it as a universal adapter for AI, right? So MCP, just for all the tech folks out there, stands for Model Context Protocol. It's a new open standard from Anthropic. Anthropic are the folks that bring you Claude. And you can think of it as a USB-C for AI. So basically a single standard way for AI models to connect and to understand external tools and external data sources. So think of it as they are translating whatever, like think you're speaking two different languages, right? Like I'm speaking, English, you're speaking German, right? The MCP would be the adapter between us. So I would say something in English and the MCP would translate it into German so that you could understand. That's how it works, right? So taking something from our data platform, for example, and translating it into a language that AI can understand. And when you think of it, like the MCP server is the adapter itself, right? It's a program that translates, our API's unique data into the universal MCP language that AI understands. So when you think of it, like, you look at the chart here, like an AI model like Claude, a Gemini, a ChatGPT, right? Then you think about the MCP server. If you think of that as like an American outlet, right? Like the outlet, then MCP server, you can think of that like a universal travel adapter, right? That translates the API data into a language that AI understands. And then the Conductor API is all the AEO, SEO data that you can query, and you can think of that as the European plug. And the MCP server makes those two things work together and talk to one another. And this is the future, everybody, where a lot of times many of you may not log into Conductor, whether or whatever platform you use. It's not just Conductor users here, but if you are a Conductor user and you don't necessarily have to log into the UI anymore. You can just go to ChatGPT and start querying, and it'll do all the searching for you, which is a much easier way, right? And the goal here is to cut down on manual exports, static reporting, and siloed data. And ultimately, like if your boss comes over to you and says, "Hey, what happened? What happened over the last 6 months with the site? Like, how did our sentiment change?" Instead of having to log into the platform and dig around, you can just ask ChatGPT or Copilot, "Hey, what happened? Like what happened last month?" And it will tell you exactly what happened. And then you can just send that off to your boss. It is a much more effective way to do it. And of course, there's always going to be people that are going to log into the platform, and dig around because they are their job and they enjoy it. Like I'm one of those people. But the MCP, like those are for people who maybe don't have time, right? Like got a million things on their plate and they just need to answer the question, and they know that Conductor has the answer, but they don't have time to dig around in the dashboards. So ultimately, they'll just do it, like these will just do it for us. So you can think of this like it turns our data from a report into a live ingredient, for your AI strategy. And that's a really interesting way to put it. And it makes it much easier because in the old days, you'd have to have a engineer build some sort of adapter, which would just be nonsense, everybody. Nobody wants to do that, right? That just takes forever. Shout out to my engineering friends out there. So that's what an MCP is. That's what an MCP server is. If anyone has any other questions on that, please hit your boy up. I'm happy to jump on the phone, chat through it a little bit more. And the cool thing is for all you Conductor users out there, look at this. Look, what's this? Is this the app store in I don't know what they call it, like the app store in the ChatGPT in OpenAI ChatGPT? It is. And look what's there. It's Conductor. So very soon, right now, we are in alpha for this, right? Well, so basically the idea is that if you are a Conductor customer, you'll be able to connect your account to ChatGPT and you will be able to query it and ask it questions. Like I literally asked it, "How did we do last week?" And all of the AI data is there. It'll tell me mentions, share of voice, sentiment score, and then I can ask it all different types of questions, and I can build graphs off of it. It is really, really cool. And if you want a demo of this, and you're a customer, just reach out to your AM. If you are not a customer, reach out, go start a trial, reach out. We can show you a demo of it. This is not available for everyone 100% yet. We're still in alpha, but it is a fast follow to get this out to as many people as possible. So if you're not on the list right now, be patient. It's coming, I promise. But this is going to change the way we all do our jobs, me included. And I'm really, really excited about it because it takes a really long time to go through all the accounts I have to go through and all the data. And if I could just ask ChatGPT, "Hey man, like what's going on, here," making these slides would take a lot less time, even though I love it. All right, we got a couple of minutes left. So very quickly, Google's Universal Commerce Protocol. What this is that this is, basically a way for, folks, for sites and retailers to sell their goods within the, within AI interactions and into instant sales to reduce friction, right? Like that's kind of how they put it. That was a little messy of a explanation, but basically it allows you to complete purchases directly within the AI interface, right? So it's exactly what OpenAI is doing with Shopify and Etsy right now, so that you don't have to go to the website to buy anything. You can actually just buy something directly in the AI interface. Again, there's a ton of key benefits here. You retain all brand control. It's like expanded reach. It's going to make it. I think this is actually going to be very good for retail sites, even though a lot of people are probably like, "Oh God, I don't want to, I don't want this." This is going to be good. I truly believe that. It's also going to be compatible with industry standards like MCP, which we just discussed, and Agents Payment Protocol, agent to agent. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to sell your goods to people, right? There's a couple of integration options. Like there's a native checkout or an embedded checkout. Depends how you want to do it. One, that goes directly within Google's AI services. And then the embedded one is something that, could be more bespoke. And on the future, like what they're going to expand into is multi-item carts, account linking for loyalty programs, post-purchase support. There's going to be so much that comes out of this. There's going to be so much. And again, this is just the beginning of this. And I scratched the surface of this. Scratched the surface. For service brands, interesting question. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to use a version of this to have someone either contact you or to generate leads based on their query. I'm sure that's something that you could that will come down the line, but that's definitely interesting. But ultimately, moving on from here, because I know we're at time. One more thing before we go here, everybody. Everyone see this? Everyone see this? So Google just got through this whole monopoly thing, and they have now partnered with Apple. Where Gemini is going to be their AI technology that's going to power like Siri and everything and Apple Intelligence. So that's an insane amount of power that Google holds. But hey, that's how Google rolls, man. That's how Google rolls. And you just saw that Gemini slide before where they were gaining on OpenAI. Game over here, everyone. That is going to be like, now that they have access to every iPhone on the planet, forget about it. That locks it up. And it's like a 10-year deal or something like that. So again, when will Google get sued again? Probably in the near future. But ultimately, this is Google being Google. And you gotta give them credit, man. They just don't care. They go for it, man. Good for them. They make this stuff happen. But with that said, we talked a lot about algorithms today. Just remember, the only algorithm that matters is the heart, mind, and soul of your customer. If you create great content that they like and love, they will come back and be customers for life. Everybody, if you are not in the community, please join the community. If you're a Conductor customer, we have a lot of fun in there. Just go into the nav here, click community, and join us. We have a lot of good discussions. You can ask questions. I do a monthly, I do a monthly session where you can launch questions at me, which I love. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for spending 30 minutes of your valuable time with me. I'm blessed that so many people come to this, and it is my favorite part of my job. I would not be able to do it without y'all. Thank you all for spending a few extra minutes with me this month. There was a lot going on. Another whiz joke. I just realized I made the same whiz joke twice, 90s. But with that, everybody, once again, thank you for spending 30 minutes of your valuable time with me. And